right. We are live, folks. We are live. We got a few minutes to come on in. Before we get started, we are going to have a conversation about politics on today. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are in the chat of Zoom, you have the opportunity later on to come on and speak and share your information and or talk about some of the topics in between as we have this discussion on some of the politics that's going on across the country, especially some of the things that are happening right here in the state of California, and some of these laws that are in position that are going to affect us greatly. And we need to know a little bit more about it so that we can be well versed and understand what we're doing and what we're getting involved in. So definitely appreciate all of you for tuning in, wanting to be a part of this conversation. And so it is 6:30 and we like to start promptly. So we appreciate everyone for coming on and listening in to this great conversation. I am Patrick Jackson, president of the NAACP. I have here along with me our second vice president, Patrick McGee. And we also have political analyst and community activist, Ms. Tiara King. Hello to the both of you.
Hello.
So starting off, Tiara, just give us a little bit about yourself.
So I am Vice President of Retrain the Night, which is a nonprofit organization that assists in the awareness, prevention, and crime reduction efforts locally here in Kern County, as well as a newfound endeavor, CEO of Restorative Justice and Reentry Project. And I've just worked collaboratively with county, state, and federal law enforcement agencies and just try to fight for the rights of our community's most high individuals and most at-risk youth.
Awesome. Go ahead, Pat, give folks a little bit about yourself.
Just a quick synopsis. I'm a native of Bakersfield, been here my whole life. I'm the son of a pastor. So my father was also involved in certain political things, and I'm following in that footstep. I possess a bachelor's degree in engineering and a master's degree in business administration. And currently I work as an engineering estimator.
Awesome. So with this topic of us talking about politics, there's an array of situation issues that are going on, that is happening, that of course we can't cover everything today because there's a lot of policies. There's a lot of propositions, so we'll definitely be following up and doing a few more of these. But we wanted to dive into a few of them that we thought were important to talk about. First is just registering to vote. Why do you think that it's important for people to register to vote? I'll let you take a stab at it first, Tiara.
Well, I recently registered to vote, and my decision to do so, or I should start with my decision not to vote, was because I thought it didn't matter. I thought my voice was kind of just one in the crowd, and who cares about my vote? But just kind of getting my feet wet in politics and understanding the way that legislation is written, and we do matter, and our voice does matter, and it does actually truly influence things that get passed and the people who represent our communities, especially locally. So that's what I've come to find, is that it's very important to utilize that voice and to utilize that lane and get your grievances heard, and not just complain, but actually be there voting, putting it on paper, and making sure that your viewpoints are represented.
That's awesome. What about you, Pat?
It's very important to vote because it can help to simulate effective change in our communities, in our pocketbooks. So many different things are voted on, so many different bills, and it affects your daily life. And so it's definitely very important for us to make our voices heard, make our voices count, and be part of the decision. Basically, those who ain't at the table, you're on the menu. So make yourself heard by being involved in voting and contacting your assemblyman and woman and senators, and make sure that, hey, they know that you're here and this is what we want to see done in our communities. Make your voice heard.
And both of you made a valid point, and I like that quote. I use it a lot. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so understanding that, the importance of voting, us getting registered to vote, we've seen across the country so many of the issues of people losing important races that we could make an impact on, especially as an African-American community, but we're not registered to vote first. And then even those that are registered to vote don't always vote in the different categories when it comes to the primaries, when it comes to Senate races, things like that. A lot of time we focus a lot on the presidential race, which is coming up here in November. But of course, you have city council, you have school board seats, all those type of seats that are very, very important. It goes back to what Patrick was alluding to, that it affects your pocketbook. Those people are the people that make decisions on jobs, economy-wise, what's coming in, what projects or creative ideas they can bring to the table when it comes to grants, what type of highway projects and creating jobs that way. From an educational standpoint, you have school budgets, and so you have to have people that are in position, which are making hard decisions now, which with COVID going on, how our children are going to be educated. And so those small things of that people view voting is such an important piece. And I want to direct our attention to with voter registration, Proposition 17. And with Proposition 17, it's we have to go back just a little bit when it comes to understanding why voting is important. And a person that was convicted of a crime, of a felony, that's on parole or whatever, their vote is taken away from them. And you think about that. If it wasn't important, why would someone want to take it away from you? Why would you have to fight so hard to get it back if it wasn't important? Somebody spent millions of dollars. Do you know how much money it costs to lobby some of these bills and things like that? It costs millions of dollars to lobby to put these things on the books for it to be voted on. So the understanding that someone took out money out of their pocket to make sure that people that did something wrong, that may have made a mistake in life, and now it used to be forever they couldn't vote. Then it broke it down to where they're a felony. So now Proposition 17 pretty much is trying to clarify, even if they haven't finished parole, they can still vote. A lot of people don't know. Some of your family members and friends may not know. Even if you have a felony, you can still vote. Just because you're an ex-felon, if you finish parole, even right now before this bill, you can still vote. So encourage your family members and friends. I know when I do voter registration a lot, we be down at different places, people will tell me that they're a felon. I'm like, hey, just fill it out. You will find out that you can vote. They be scared to do that, thinking that they may go to jail just by trying to register. And so I think educating our folks on these propositions is going to be extremely important. So let me go into Proposition 17 just a little bit, so that you and your family, your friends, your loved ones will understand what's going to be on the ballot come this election, November the 3rd. It's called the California Proposition 17, the Voting Rights Restoration for Persons on Parole Amendment. So it's going to be on the ballot November 3rd, 2020. Pretty much, it's very clear. A yes vote supports this constitutional amendment to allow people on parole for felony convictions to vote. So pretty much that's what allows them to do. If you vote no, you oppose that, allowing those individuals the ability to vote. I've seen there were certain people that voted against this bill. I am going to be calling them out very soon. Certain people that represent our county that voted against this bill, especially people that call themselves Christians. And how can we not forgive somebody to allow them to the natural human right to vote, and we call ourselves a Christian? So yeah, I put words to action. Put words to action, people. You can't be on both sides of it. If a person made a mistake, that should not take away their liberty to vote. So let's go into another. Well, if you guys have questions on that, go ahead and shoot those in the message. I'll try to reply to them and get you guys on here to talk about that. If you have a comment on voting, make sure that you submit that. If you had an issue or a problem with a family member that had an issue with it, make sure you submit that as well. And then all of you that are on the Zoom that are coming in, you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question. If you want to come in and ask a question or have a comment, we would love for you to participate. This is going to be an interactive town hall, like we usually try to make it with the people that are involved. So with that being said, do any of you have any family members or loved ones that don't vote? When we talk about voter registration, has it been hard for any of you to get people to vote and or encourage some of your people to vote? Have either one of you had those issues, Tiara or Patrick?
I think I was the stubborn one who's like, no, and most of my family and friends were trying to get me to vote for years. And so, no, most of everyone in my circle, they know the importance and they respect their right to go out and voice their opinion through voting.
Likewise for me, most everyone in my circle that I know of make their voices heard.
That's what it's about. You got to try to make your voice heard. We want to make sure that people are getting out to vote. Make sure that you register to vote. We'll be submitting some links for you to be able to share to get folks registered to vote, get them in line, get them mail-in ballots. California is a mail-in ballot state, so if you register to vote, everyone is going to receive one regardless if you decide to go to the polls or not. A lot of people was upset about that, but Governor Newsom had declared that we will be a mail-in ballot state, and so everyone will receive one. You don't have to utilize it, but you will receive one. You will have the opportunity to submit it by mail. So just as a FYI, okay? So with that being
Pat,
said, go ahead, Pat.
Yes, we know not to send in a mail-in vote and then go to the polls too, right?
No, they cannot.
There you go.
Yeah, you don't want to do double voting. Nah,
right, because our president mentioned that. He did mention it.
I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah.
We don't know what he be thinking half the time, but don't know what he was thinking. But he did make that comment. But he makes a lot of different comments, just for attention. But I don't. Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. Ballot, I think it's important to note that.
One ballot, one vote. So if you're gonna use the mail-in ballot, use that one. If not, nah, don't get yourself caught up. Don't get yourself caught up. Now, Paulina said lack of literacy has played a big role in the people around me not voting. Right, goes back to education, right? We have to be able to educate each other on the importance. And I think majority of the time we don't break down for that literacy part, we don't break down the importance of it on a local level of how it affects people locally. It seems like there's always this big rush and big importance when it comes to the presidential election, but you're hurt the most from a local level. So all of where you're living at, the stuff from the top kind of dwindles down slowly, but the things that are going on in your city impacts you right now. from even community college district. You got, I mean, every aspect there's a vote somewhere to be had, and so you having a voice and a place in there. I think that's where Paulina is alluding to. Do y'all have any more insight for her?
Well, I kind of just want to add to that also. I know it can be a little confusing when you're reading through those propositions and you're looking at what it says and what people put out, and then you look at the fine print and it's kind of something different. But a lot of people don't realize that, and so they'll just look at the heading or what they've heard about it. And I think it's very important. I mean, it's absolutely vital to do your own independent research, look
Right.
into it as much as you can before making a decision on something.
I agree. And I think with a lot of that as well, and she hit it right on the head, is that you have to do team politics and stuff like this. You have to rely on each other as family members, as groups, to study these things together, because there's so much information. You have to have certain people tackle certain parts of what's in there, because you can't get through all. It's so much, and there's so many different levels that it will get confusing. You'll get discouraged. And so you definitely want to make sure that you have a group of people that you can go to, people that you can trust, people that have the same ideologies as you, and then you can kind of work together to make those type of efforts and decisions. Right. Okay. I think at this point, we're going to go on to Ms. Tiara's topic, which is SB 145. We're going to talk about that. Take it away.
Well, isn't this a fun one? I mean, I couldn't believe it. So this proposition basically, so what the bill basically states is that if Governor Newsom ends up signing it, it's going to exempt people convicted of non-forcible sodomy with a minor, or oral copulation with a minor. It will give the judge the ability to make the discretion of whether or not they want to place them on the sex offender registry. Why this is a problem is because while they state that their intent is to kind of equalize things, because they're stating that, and I hope we don't have minors on here, but sex between a male and a male, it right now, currently, it's a registerable offense. However, if it's a male and a female, it's up to the judge's discretion, and usually it's not. And so they're stating that that's unfair. So this bill is supposed to even it out. Now the problem, and again, reading the fine print and understanding how bills are laws, and that law can be interpreted several different ways. What you have is you're essentially stating that a 14-year-old can or a 24-year-old can have sex with a 14-year-old, and things are just fine, because of that huge 10-year gap. In my opinion, if they really were concerned, or if this bill was really concerned with equalizing the playing field, why not do it at 3 years or 5 years? If you're thinking about a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old, okay, that's fine, but why not do it in a closer, confined time frame or age range instead of 10 years? It's just I mean, that's just unacceptable. And then, just to add insult to injury, a minor isn't even able to consent to sex until 18. So why is this even on the table in the first place? It's a tragedy.
You hit us with some nuggets, some really, really deep nuggets. And my response to it is, I'm just real and direct. I can't be no other way. So let me take a little water real quick before I go in. Let me say this. This had to be brought up by some very sick individuals. Very sick individuals. There's no way. And again, it goes back to someone has to put money behind these type of laws. So the same thing with the prisoners, felons not being able to vote. They had to put money behind that. It's folks that's putting money behind this. So what type of sick individual is sitting there saying it is unfair that I can't have sex with a minor and I can't get away with it? Like that's a very sick individual, and those that voted for such causes are very sick individuals. And I call a spade, and I ain't afraid to say anything. Some people may be, but I just call it like it is. That's disgusting, and it's appalling. I don't understand how legislators or people will look at that in any other type of way. Now, if you're talking about trying to give people a renewed chance, things like that, that's a different scenario. But with so much going on, and especially some of the issues, and I think Miss Glenda just hit it right on the head for me. I'm gonna read exactly what she said. She said, "I agree. It is a tragedy. It will be worse in the Black community, and a lot of that goes unsaid in the Black community. There's a lot of incest and things of that sort that goes on, and in every family and community. So no matter their background or whatever, you have a bunch of different issues that align to that. And so for a person to be able to want this law passed is very, very interesting. Heidi said, I agree with Tiara that the age gap should be shorter, but I can see why the law does exist for sexual relationships with adolescents 16 to 19. That's that type of situation. That's neither here nor there. People in high school, you close in age, but I think they upped it to 24-year-old, right? I think that, didn't they?
10
I'm saying, why we up?
Yep.
Go ahead, T.
It's a 10-year range. So yeah, 16, 19. Okay, that's fine. Let's do less than 5. But as you were about to say, like, why become more lenient? Kind of making it a little bit more easier for pedophiles to take advantage. Why not kind of protect our youth while at the same time evening the playing field? I think it's important that people remember what the registry was for in the first place. And it was because an 8-year-old was tragically murdered from a gentleman living across the street from her, who was a sex offender, was not required to register. The judge did not require him register. At that time, it wasn't a law. And the parents went into action to get that law passed on a federal, I think it was federal level, and then state law named it after her. So we had these things in existence for a purpose. And I really think that 10-year, that's a bit much. I could understand the 16 to 19. I don't agree, but I do understand it. But I definitely do not understand the 10-year range on that, and that's concerning.
Right, and it should be concerning. I'll tell you right now. I got a girl. I got a baby girl. You know what I mean? I got a girl. So I'm a real dad. I'm just saying like that. I'm just saying like that. Hey, ain't no holds bars. It's for me. I don't understand how, and it's like they fly this thing under the radar, right? If it's we're expanding the age gap, who the only person is benefiting, like Tiara is saying, is the perpetrator. It's not helping the victims that have been, and we know that this is a major issue. It's been so many issues. And don't they have a movie after that? Is there a movie or something that was made after that? The little girls, kind of a show. I think it was a show or a movie that was made after that little girl scenario, that the guy lived right across the street. And You know, and that's when I found out at the end that it was that. That family, that dad and that family had pushed for that law and things of that sort. And the guy lived right across the street, you know, and, you know, for years, you know, people were trying to find out what was going on. So it seemed like it's only benefiting a certain group or a certain person, but it seemed like it's going to make it what it is. Now, Jeanette said, from what I understand, this is already true for a male and female. So I don't understand why people are upset. Oh, where it go? Don't understand why people are upset. This will is making it the same. I'm losing it. This bill is making it the same for LGBTQ community to be treated equal under the law. It seems that we should be upset with SB 145. It seems like we shouldn't be upset with SB 145, but the initial law that made this okay for heterosexuals is SB 145 exactly widening the age gap, or was the 10-year gap already in place?
So it's my understanding the widening or the defining of the gap is with SB 145. And yes, that is correct. It was already in place for heterosexuals. The main issue, I think, why, well, I could say for me, the main issue why this is a problem has nothing to do with whether this is between a male and a male or a male and a female, whatever the case may be. The main issue for me is the fact that the justification of why we need to even the playing field is for those who engage in voluntary. And so you're looking at that more closer age range. If that were the case, though, and if that were the primary driver of this, then why not have done it at 3 years? Why not have done it at 5? And I may have never even thought twice about it. But when you think of the worst case scenario, and people don't like to think about that, but it happens more often than not, that's what we need to have as the driving force. In that worst case scenario, we're looking at a child and an adult, and that is sexual abuse. And that's, we can't make grace for that because people have preferences. We have to protect our children.
Yeah, I think the question is really trying to determine if the 10-year gap was already in existence on the books for heterosexuals.
I think she was saying it was for heterosexuals, but they included it with the same sex. Right.
Without getting graphic, yes.
We can get graphic. It's grown folks.
Okay, well, in particular, it addresses sodomy and oral copulation, and so it pretty much the anal sex is now addressed in this, whereas before it wasn't as clear, so it didn't really apply, and therefore individuals who prefer male on male relationships ended up having to register, whereas if it were a heterosexual relationship, they didn't. And so yes, it gets a little touchy in that aspect, but that's why I say we got to think about, we can't think about preferences on this. We have to think about the children. We have to think about our youth. We can make room for preferences when they're older. And again, in California, it is against the law for an 18-year-old, or anyone 17 and under to consent to sex. So it really, that male on male preference argument doesn't even really apply, because technically it's still against the law. Consent doesn't start until 18.
So the 10-year, that's already on the books though for heterosexuals, right? Is that what I'm understanding, that gap is already in existence on the books?
I believe it is, but I can't, okay. Don't quote me on that.
Okay. Well,
I
then
do
then I
know
can
that for
see.
heterosexuals, if it is within that range, they do not have to register. Well, it's the judge's discretion if they register or not.
Okay. Because even for that, I think 10 years is too much. And I think that's what this person is kind of like addressing. Well, if it's already okay for 10 years between heterosexuals, then why discriminate against the LGBT community on the 10 years? I think that's what they're trying to articulate here.
Yeah, and I think that's what Tiara is trying to address, is that it don't matter. Neither one was right. So the the first
Exactly.
one that wasn't
That's where
right,
I'm at.
and this ain't the
Neither
first one
one.
ain't right, and you can't, it ain't, you trying to even or wrong, ain't the
Yeah,
direction we trying to go in. We trying to go in the other direction. Let's fight to get it
exactly.
off the books of the
Yeah, yeah,
heterosexual 10 years. And let's not add to
yeah.
the let's not add to
Add
the
to the
kids
wrong.
being the ones that are being targeted. And
Yeah,
there's so many kids being targeted, and of course
absolutely.
they go into like the Catholic priests and stuff like that, where that was a big issue. And of course that's a boy on boy type situation. And like she was mentioning, I mean, so they try to get so technical with the law that if it's anal, if it's all this type of stuff, then
Yeah.
now it's not considered actual sex and things of that sort. It's such a muddy slide that these people try to create laws to try to protect themselves for taking advantage of young people. Just wait till you're grown. You can't do grown stuff. You can't drink till you're 21.
Right.
So we want kids to be able to participate in activities that one, they don't even know themselves. And that's the other issue of trying to sexualize everything into a kid's area. When it comes to trying to do sex ed and all this other type of stuff, kids don't know nothing about that stuff until they don't even know their bodies and stuff. So trying to enforce sexuality on them at such a young age, and then someone trying to force themselves and not knowing themselves, and then us setting up laws to where we can't protect them, and these people are getting away with things, is ridiculous. I mean, it's more, you get more penalty. And this is the crazy part about society. Think about this. You get more of a penalty with selling drugs. Think about that.
Yeah.
You get more of a penalty selling drugs, man, than messing with a kid. Like that. Try to wrap that around your head, man. Like that just it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Glenda said pedophilia law will soon follow. I'm trying to tell y'all better watch it. And Glenda owns something here, is that people don't stop. And this is where, especially Black folks, I like to talk to y'all a little bit. Every group continues to push the envelope. There is no satisfaction. Okay, there's no I'm satisfied or we reached the promised land. There is no, and we're gonna get into that here in a little bit because time is of the essence. And so there is no promised land that you've made it to. Every group continues to push the envelope. There is no, we're okay, we're gonna go over here and settle. We thank you. As soon as you get one thing, it's what have you done for me lately? As soon as you give them another thing, it's what have you done for me lately? You give them another thing, it's what have you done for me lately? So that envelope is going to continue to be pushed. And Tiara, I want you to hit on that. What do you think about Glenda's comment about pedophilia? Law will soon follow.
Well, I'm going to tie that back into our previous conversation about voting, because watch it very closely. There are advocates for pedophilia to be legal. And I do know of a group in particular that came out of Canada, and they've kind of set up shop here in America, and they're really trying to push the envelope on that to say that it shouldn't be necessarily illegal, and that it should be considered a it should be considered a preference. So they're saying, you know, kind of piggybacking on other issues and saying, you know, I was born this way, and so I shouldn't.
Let's be frank. They piggybacking off the LGBTQ. I forgot the other letters. That's what they're piggybacking off of. So once you open that door, once you open the door of that, this is a mentality. This is a I'm born this way. Now it becomes everybody, you know, because you have to be something had to have clicked and happened, because there are people that have issues, that something is going on in the mind. I don't know, you know, whatever people preferences, whatever. Can't say if you born this way or whatever, but something had to go on in the mind, because you will see people that struggle with it, that don't want to do these particular acts. And so how is that being, you know, pretty much addressed? Because it seemed like that door is opening up more and more, because it's becoming that trend of I'm born this way, so you can't judge me on the way I'm born. And that's the difference. And
I do want to address Heidi's remark there. That is very true. They do not agree, nor do they support or endorse the including them into that. They don't. But again, that's the road that they're trying to take, and they're utilizing, in my opinion, everything that has been done. They're just taking that same road and trying to push the agenda. And then to address the treatment side of things, I don't necessarily agree that individuals are born attracted to children. That's just not something that I agree with. But that's how they feel, and they try to manage that preference by continuing through treatment. And there are some individuals who take that seriously, and they know that, you know, the way that I feel about this child is wrong, and I'm going to make the necessary steps, and I'm going to fix my life around this so that I'm held accountable for my actions. But then you have these groups of individuals coming out of Canada trying to say, like, yeah, this is just the thing. It's not.
right. And I think that's where, you know, opening up the door of opportunity is something of relevance, right? You know, once you open up a door, it gives people the green light to be able to say, this is how I am too. And, you know, people always try to take advantage of that. And I think it's up to people that believe a certain way. We don't, you know, believe in pedophilia, to make sure that we get out and vote. They're gonna raise a bunch of money. There's people that think this way, and I think we have this ideology that everybody that's a judge or a cop or a lawyer or a business person are just good people. I mean, these are the people that are engaging in these activities. So we have to understand that there may be somebody that's in legislation that is that way. There could be somebody that's, you know, at the church house that is that way, that support these things behind closed doors. So we have to be very aware that these laws don't get slipped, because they can be slid in with other bills. They can be slid in a way to where it's tying in into this. Once you start changing, and again, that'll go. We have to have a whole nother conversation about the ideology and the psychology piece of how some of the things that they're trying to change. And if those things are changed, you're going to open up the door for pedophiles and other people to be able to say the same thing. So because you can say for anything, a dog, cat, roaches, whatever. So you know, and that's the thing. We live in America, and so it puts us in a very different situation to where we have to make sure we vote. Got to make sure that we're on the front lines, registered to vote, being aware about what's going on, so that people like that won't try to circumvent the system and utilize laws to piggyback off of them to put themselves in position to do their nasty little games like this. We have to protect our children. Number
Right.
one, the fate of our children are at stake. I think, man, we gotta do a whole town hall just on that by itself. That's gonna be a good conversation. But we're going to transfer into hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Glenda said something important I want to address. She said there was a group of pedophiles called Eight is Too Late in the 70s of rich, affluent people. You see, rich, affluent people. So just so y'all can be aware that this is not something that is just talked about, that these are people with action, people that got money and people that got influence. And as this envelope is being pushed, best believe they're going to try to circumvent a way for them to get the things that they want passed. So just to be aware of that. At this time, we're going to okay, I'll address your question in a minute, Michael. So we're going to go ahead and go into our brother Patrick. He's going to talk about AB 3121, which is reparations.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. AB 3121 is basically a bill that's been proposed and has been passed to consider reparations. Pretty much it's a task force to study and develop reparations proposal for African Americans. What it will do, it was written by Assemblywoman Shirley Weber of the 79th District in San Diego, and it was passed earlier this year to go to the Senate. And what it's going to do is it establishes a 9-member task force to do the following: to study the issue of reparations of African Americans with special consideration for African Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. The proposed ways to educate California public about its findings and make recommendations of the forms that reparations might take, and submit a report of its findings to the legislation as specified. Well, one of the main things a lot of people will mention about California, well, wasn't California part of the union and this and that, but there was a lot of different things done systematically, even in California, involving the slave trade, especially the Fugitive Act of 1852, capturing slaves and sending them, or free blacks and send them back to the South to be enslaved. So it had its hand dirty. And there's some other things as well. We have incarceration, unfair justice system that has definitely been unfair to the African-American community in sentencing and things of that nature, wages. There's been so many different systematically things done to African-Americans. Basically, the major provisions is to make findings and declarations relating to the practice and scope of slavery in the United States and colonies that became in the United States between 1619 and 1865, as well as evidence of slavery, legacy of structural discrimination against living African Americans in the United States, and finds and declares that following the abolition of slavery, the government at all levels continue to enforce laws or condone practices that disadvantage African Americans, including sharecropping, convict leasing. That's when they use those in prison. It's modern day slavery. Use those in prison and have them do work for free. And mandatory segregation and redlining, which we know has also been a major part in affecting the economics of the African American community, as well as others on that part. Also, unequal education and disproportionate treatment of the hands of the criminal justice system. And so this bill is basically targeting that with the task committee And the 9 members that are on the committee, 5 are appointed by the governor, and 2 are appointed by the Assembly, 2 by the Senate. And the purpose is not to have it filled with politicians on the task force. So the 5 that the governor picked has to be really diverse in different opinions and history and things of that matter, to come and bring the information that they have, and to also be able to request certain documents from the state, from insurance companies, because there's insurance companies that profited off of slavery. That still remains. You know, so there's been a lot of businesses that still had profit and got their start during that time, as well as colleges and things of that nature. So there's a lot into that. But basically, this committee is to do those findings and to present it to the legislation to recommend how to go about dispersing reparations, if it's to pass. And so this is the big topic. You know, this is something that for years has always been said, well, how do we even address this? How do we even attack this issue? I mean, but we have attacked the issue. We've provided reparations for the Japanese in the internment camps in World War II. The Native Americans received a form of reparations, but the way that was set up, it was basically so the government can have more control still in how things are dispersed and how much is dispersed. So it was really a reparations that we want to learn from and not repeat, because it did not do the Native Americans justice. On that topic, you know, they're now allowed to have casinos on their land, which I think is good for them to, you know, bring some other type of form of a reparation to their community, you know, for what happened to them. But this here is particular for African Americans. And this is the focus on us. We're the only ones who have yet to been compensated for the wrongs and for our ancestors' labor, for the Jim Crow era. All the stuff that didn't happen that long ago. They like to make it seem that it happened so far beyond. My parents, my grandfather was born in the 1800s, my mom's father. So, you know, it's not that long ago as they tried to implement it to be. There's ways to get it done. And that's what this task force and community is supposed to attack and address. How do we go about this? And I think this is a wonderful catalyst to even bring it finally onto a federal level. I think this is definitely important that this is being done, even if the state, for whatever reason, may not go with the recommendations. But I think it's opening that door for a definite discussion to get it, just bringing some form of hope. And so we're hoping that, you know, this can bring some justice to a people that deserve it, have been ostracized, have not been allowed in many different ways to participate in the economy for many years, that have been unjustly treated. And like Pastor, you know, give people a chance. Give people a chance. And many of our ancestors, our grandfathers, or grandparents didn't have a chance. You know, and I think about how, and I'm starting to go personal, how my father served in Korea. He came back and had the door slammed in his face to try to buy a home. Served his country, but yet couldn't, you know, so these different things were going on. He was told to his face by a Christian brother that, you know, I wish I could sell you a house, but I can't because I made a promise I won't sell to any black. You know, so this has been going on. We know this has happened. We know it still happens today, and there needs to be something done about it. And I think this bill is addressing that. And so we're hoping to see it's going to the governor's desk, and we believe he will sign it, and we can get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great understanding that we need to have, especially as a community when it comes to reparations. Most people didn't think that it would be a conversation in our lifetime, just like we didn't think Obama would happen in our lifetime. So I think these type of conversations are courageous. It's something that needs to be had. I don't really think it even should be, I shouldn't even use the word courageous. It should be something that's expected. Right. You know, it definitely should be something that is extremely expected for us as a community, because we should expect this from the government that has continued to oppress. I mean, it's not some outside group or some vigilante group like the KKK or something like that, which were all government officials, by the way. Right. So the oppression that they continue to push on us post-slavery. We're talking about this piece of legislation or the committee that's been put together is very specific. That they're talking about the group called ADOS. So it's very specific for the American descendants of slavery. American descendants of slavery. For some time now, we haven't been able to define us because we don't come from just a specific origin. They stripped of us our name, our language, our religion, of everything that we had, and they imposed into us what they wanted to pretty much sap out any rebellion out of us. And so as we continue to fight, the process of reparations became what is going to continue to look like for us, especially as African Americans, whether it's monetary, whether it's in education, whether it's in land. We were promised 40 acres and a mule. So that would have put us in a great position. But of course, America again reneged on that, even as we continue to try to build our economy up. And we had one of the strongest economies post-slavery with Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they bombed that. The first bombing, one of the first bombings here on American soil, that was a terrorist group. So those things are mentioned. Then you talk about literacy laws, talk about vagrancy laws. You get all of these laws that came post-slavery. That then you talk about mass incarceration. All of these things continue the miseducation of Black kids. That to create the school to put in pipeline. Then you're talking about how the government played a hand in killing off a lot of our Black leaders. How the government had a plan and infiltrating our communities, creating ghettos, putting drugs inside of our communities, which now we have broken homes and things of that sort. We talk about Planned Parenthood, try to kill off Planned Parenthood, kills off more Black babies than anybody, but we don't really have those type of conversations. So America has done a major disservice to Black people, and so I think some of the questions are coming in. I'm ranting. I'm getting a little.
Pat, may I interject something real quick? They made a red line on the bill before it was amended this last time, and it was addressing African Americans, and then it said also African Americans with special consideration of African Americans who are descendants of the enslaved. So that's because originally also the task force was supposed to be 8, but they changed the language a little bit.
That's going to be important to watch.
Yeah,
it's going to be important to watch the language because now folks go all of a sudden be Black.
Right.
That was never Black, so we got to definitely watch that. So if you have a lifetime of being, even if you were Black and you passed for white, if you registered as white, you stay on that side because you benefited from being able to pass as white, and now you repped your reparations that way. So I think that's going to be very important that we look at that in a way to where the language, because that happened with the Indians as well. The people that a lot of people passed themselves off as Indians, got that money, got the land and stuff, and infiltrated that process. So with technology today, we should be able to circumvent that and they shouldn't be able to circumvent it and to ensure that we as a community have a due process to ensure that people are in line with what they say that they are.
So I have a question though, just to kind of play the Debbie Downer here, especially as you mentioned, like, all of the things that we were promised in the past. Are you hopeful, Patrick, that this isn't just to appease with everything going on right now? Because it is just a task force. It's not a guarantee, and it is just research, not even talking, how will this look like laid out for reparations?
I'm extremely optimistic, mainly because the people that are involved. That's the key. You can't have some bourgeoisie type people that just up there cooning. I ain't with the cooning and stuff. You got a lot of coons out here. They just out here bootlicking, and they just coming out here just to be on TV and say a few things to make themselves look good and to appease the oppressors. but you have a group of people that have put this together and pushed this to where it's at today. This isn't new. Obama knocked it down. He wasn't for it when it was presented. This isn't new. The proposition isn't new. Right now, it's us taking advantage of the opportunity of it being presented at this particular time to ensure that the legislators support what African Americans. I think, to answer your question, TR, the awakening of especially younger Black people and younger white people. Younger white people are seeing, because you think about that, I'm gonna have y'all just stop for just one moment. The kids that was 12, 13 years old had a Black president. So what they're seeing today is that the rhetoric and things that are going on, they're realizing that their parents, that their grandparents are truly racist. There's a strife that is happening that people aren't talking about in the white community. There's a strife that is happening in the homes of white communities of them realizing that they're not what they say they are. They're not fair. They're not going along with being the undercover racists. They're not going along because they like their Black friends. Some of them got Black lovers, and so that whole dynamic is changing how they're viewing even their family members. So that conversation is going to continue to happen for us as a community. And I think we're going to have a lot more support, especially from the younger generation, because I don't think the older generation have much hope. You kill people off with hope, and so I think the younger generation has a lot more hope and enthusiasm because they ain't been beat up. So I think their enthusiasm is going to carry it through. And just like how I didn't think that we would have a Black president. My thinking was shallow. Our thinking was shallow. This group that grew up with Obama, their mind is shaped differently. Their mind didn't grow up that's not possible anymore. That their minds are shaped totally different. So the way they're going to move, I think, is going to put us in a really, really, really good position, in a successful position as a community.
Pat, there's a couple questions in there.
Yeah, Glenda had asked, what is the timeline of research?
Yes, so the governor has to call the first meeting no later than June 1st, 2021. And so the time period of this shows it to go out to 2023. But the first meeting has to be called no later than June 1st, 2021.
Awesome. And then she was also asking, is there any type of plan of action that's tied to what reparations would look like?
Well, that's exactly what the task force is committing to do, to look at how that will look like. What would be the most effective way to implement that, and how to go about it to implement it. Okay. How will we compensate and things of that nature. So that's what the whole task force is set up to do, is to do their research and bring that all together and then bring it to fruition. Basically a whole plan, an outlined plan of how we can go about this.
Right. And Michael said, what is 40 acres and a mule? What would that be equivalent to?
Yeah, so one of the articles I saw, equivalency to that would be like $97 trillion.
America, you got a heavy bill, baby. Hey,
97 trillion. Considering all the African Americans that were enslaved, 40 acres for each, and a mule, and inflation, and taking all that into consideration.
They could just give us Texas and California. We'll be good.
There you go.
Just give us Texas and California. Just give them to us.
Just hand it over.
Just hand them over.
Mm-hmm.
But see that, and that's where I think Dr. King, well, more people understand that's why Dr. King was killed, because he was going after economics. He had became extremely powerful.
Exactly.
He had already got and again, he kept pushing. Remember, there is no arrival. Coretta Scott King also stated, even after his death, that every generation has to fight. And that's what Dr. King was doing. He wouldn't got the Voting Rights Act, he was fighting for sanitation workers, trying to get fair wages. He was pushing that. He was starting to push the economic piece, and they didn't like the fact that he was coming to get the economic piece, and he was coming to actually get us in a place, because he would always state a people without an economic base is a baseless people.
Right.
You can't grow, you can't build, you can't do anything if you have no income, no jobs, no skills to be able to bring yourself up in order to be the great individual that you seek to be. If you continue to be railroaded and put in so many different situations to where you can't succeed. And I think that's where I think one of the questions from white America is like, well, we didn't do that. We ain't had nothing to do with slavery. Why would we have to pay for slavery? And one of the individuals said, well, you benefited or you inherited from it.
Right.
And so you're gonna have to pay what your ancestors didn't pay. And that's in every situation. Every generation has to pay for the wrongdoings for the other, just like the generation have to deal with the railroads that was put in place, the burning down of buildings, so they couldn't move forward. So then your people could move forward. You stepped on the necks of others in order to get to the places that others are at. And I think that question comes up a lot on when it comes to kind of an equal base. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying. It sucks, and I kind of gauge both sides. And so, they say, well, I didn't have anything to do with that, but you did. And maybe not directly, but like you said, you benefited off of it. And so, yeah, hey, I am all for reparations. Absolutely.
And I think doing reparations can really bring a true reconciliation in this nation, in the sense that it can't completely right the wrong, but it can provide some type of reconciliation for the wrong, if you will. I don't think the wrong could ever be right, you know what I'm saying? But, just like if we go to court for something and there's a lawsuit, you get compensated for the wrongdoing, and I don't see why this is such a fight against of this happening for a people that was enslaved for over 400 years, through systematic Jim Crow, through everything, burning down of Black Wall Street and other massacres that happened, lynching. I mean, we don't just have to look at slavery. You know what I mean? I mean, it's been going on even post that, as you had mentioned, and that the Japanese were able to get theirs. And that's where I think, how do you pick one group over the other? And rightfully so. They should have gotten some type of reparations. I have no problem with them getting that, because they were treated wrongly during World War II. But at the same token, you cannot turn a blind eye to a people that's been done like this for over 400 years.
The way I look at it, Pat,
camp for 400 years.
The way I look at it, Pat, is we was in line first. Like we in line to get and then it's like somebody cut in line.
Right.
you know where you was in school, and you wait in line, you hungry at lunch, you wait in line about to get your plate, and then you got a group of people just cut in front of you. How that make you feel? Everybody about to eat, but I'm in line first.
Right.
I'm in line first.
I agree totally. Yeah, I don't negate that. I absolutely agree. They cut in line. But I'm just saying that, I understand them getting, deserving that, but we deserve it first, and I agree totally with you on that. And we've been neglected in this over years past, over and over again. And the 40 acres and a mule, that was what was guaranteed to us at the end of the Civil War. And instead they took the land and then gave it back to the slave owners. I mean, America has a lot of blood on its hand, and that it needs to reconcile one way or another. And yeah, so I definitely hope this is a good catalyst to get this through and to make change. Also, I just wanted to mention that someone has sent me a private message too about, I just want to mention, you can find the bill information on AB 3121 and many other bills. Just simply go to the California Legislation Information website, and it's all there for you. That's one of the links that you can utilize. But you know, Pat, if you don't mind, I'll post one in the comment section for everyone to check out for themselves as well.
Definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely post that in the chat. Now, Glenn also asked, is this the first move towards getting reparations? If not, what caused it to fail of the previous attempts? And I can answer that part. No, it's not the first time. And what failed was that it was just talk and conjecture. There was nothing that was put together as far as a policy. There was always this fight that even now, but I think we kind of is moving because we was Black, African American, colored. We couldn't make up what we wanted to be because we've been so confused. We say we're African American, ain't tied to nothing in Africa. You know, it's like in Africa is a continent. It's not, you know, it's a continent. It's not a country. It's places in Africa that you will be tied to, right? So, you know, that, and so us coming to the realization that the simplest term is American descendants of slavery.
Right.
That's it. You're an American.
Exactly.
You was here. You're a descendant of a slave. So you should be reconciled with that money. So if you want to be Black, African American, purple, green, or whatever you want, what color you want to be, as long as you are an American descendant of a slave, then you will be in that category. And so I think that was one of the issues. And then there was no real actual plan that people rallied behind. And you know, you got people that was trying to lead in so many different areas, instead of just rallying behind a plan and saying this is what's going to happen. And we had a period of time, I believe, especially after Dr. King, that there was a push and pull, and you had a bourgeois group that was trying to lead, and people were just angling for money, and they was able to hush people up. And so now we're able to get real folks in position to be able to speak out, now we have a real plan, and now we can really push that plan through with evidence and facts that they cannot deny. So now that's in place. Now we're moving towards something that's more comprehensive. And of course, California is always the more progressive state. So we will be that riding horse that will potentially, like Patrick alluded to earlier, of us actually putting this in position for us to be able to benefit long term throughout the rest of the country.
Yeah, and California has a history of being a trendsetter. So this is a good thing.
All right. You all right? Any other questions on that? I think let me go over to the other area. I think Facebook might have had a couple of questions as well I've been missing. Let's see. Yep, there we go. Okay. Yeah, it looks like we're doing all right. That was not loading. So right now, as far as reparations, what would be some of the things that do you all think that we should just get a check? Do you think it should be a multifaceted of checks, education, land? What do you all think that the group, because these 9 are kind of going to mold it, but we can brainstorm a few items before we move on to the next thing here real quick.
I don't know. In my opinion, I think multiple checks would be sufficient. But I also think with that, people kind of need to maybe take financial management classes. And then, yeah, I definitely would say land would be sufficient because they've used and abused us with housing and the ability to own homes. And so, yeah, land and money.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a little cautious on land. And my reasoning is I don't want to get some barren land out in past Mojave Desert. Yeah, here y'all go. Here's some land for you. Take this, you know. No. But I think here's the other thing. If it is in the form of checks, do you know how much is that going to boost the economy? We're one of the largest consumers in this nation. So there's also that benefit, even as a nation as a whole, you know. But like you said, yeah, it would be nice to have some financial classes so we can hold on to some of this and create generational wealth, you know, for our children and our children's children. And but I think checks, either that or some form of paying for college. We shouldn't be having to take out student loans. You know, and there's different ways of addressing this. And I think a lot of those are good ideals on the table, and hopefully they can come up with a good option that would definitely be a benefit for the people as a whole.
I can agree with that totally, because you know, with so much being done, and so much being said, when it comes to education, it's gonna, and writing the check, and of course, just like in every group, everybody ain't gonna be responsible if they get a check, and just like most folks ain't gonna be responsible if they get a check. You got people that hit the lotto and they worse off before they even got the money.
Right.
It's a large percentage of them too, just based off money management. So I think that I think a lot of us we be more concerned about other people's pockets of what they gonna do with their money. And so if they mess it off, they mess it off. But of course, it's going to go back into the economy. But those that are smart enough, you know, there are a lot of things that can be done. A lot of things how it can be utilized. Michael even said education, investments, and building a portfolio. Yeah, these are different ways that we as a community can begin to build ourselves, can continue to build off of something, so that when these reparations, these dollars, or however it's put together, comes in, that it can be something that's beneficial for a generation to come. Even with the ADOS group, they're looking at something that's immediate, but something that's long lasting as well, not just something that's immediate gratification, but we're talking about something that's years and years and years to come, that generationally is not just affecting the generation that can tangibly get it now, but others that can obtain it as they go on, just kind of like the Indians as well. They're although we're learning from how they set them up, but they actually continue to get. It's not a one shot and then that's it. They continue to actually get. So we have to make sure that it's a process to where our children's children get to benefit off of it, because that's how many generations we were stifled and continue to be stifled with opportunity. So that's just my take on it. That's just in my opinion. I think that's, you know, if we're looking at trying to grow as a people, we definitely got to make sure that we get behind these reparations.
Right.
That this is our opportunity. You know, and for us that's just thinking that, oh man, this is not a possibility, that this isn't something that could happen. Again, I go back to, we thought Obama wasn't gonna happen. It came out of nowhere. And so what we thought was impossible became possible. And so, but it's gonna take the work of us supporting it, and also making sure we holding our legislators accountable, that if this is what we want as a community, this is what we have to demand. And it goes back to voting. We continue to give up our vote freely, without any type of cause or demand. Every group have a call and demand that they want something from the person that they're voting for. we have not done that yet. And this is where the wake-up call comes that, again, I've said it before. I hope that during all these elections, we don't just become fascinated with people getting into office and we backslide and we two-stepping and we doing the electric slide and we doing the splits and stuff, dancing, but we ain't demanding no policy. We're not holding these people accountable to say that they're going to support anything that's going to directly affect us. And so this bill right here, this bill directly affects us. We've been talking about the bill that with the sex offenders that affects us directly. So if we're not coming and asking that they support these things a certain way, we continue to fall between the cracks, and it kind of goes straight into the area that I wanted to talk about, which is SB 731, which is the decertification of police officers. So that bill went dead because they didn't show up to vote on it. So it just died. You know, they decided that they wasn't going to vote, so it didn't get a vote. So it pretty much died. And maybe they'll bring it back up at some given point. But pretty much that policy was going to put, in layman's terms, police officers in position as being just like doctors or lawyers or therapists and things, people that have licenses. If they do something wrong, they can be declassified based on their wrongdoings. So that's what that bill was intended for, so that some accountability can be had for the officer. But of course, there was a lot of pressure from the unions, the police unions, to those legislators that represent us, the ones that will show up to the cameras and show up on scenes and take pictures and stuff, but they don't show up to vote, to do their job, to vote for something that we as a community have said is an issue. These people didn't even show up to vote. They didn't even vote either way. They didn't even show up. So the care and the concern for the community is still based off the interest of them being elected and them being swayed by the powers that be again. Again, that bill is SB 731. So it died. It was Senator Senator Bradford presented that bill, and it was supported by many groups. But of course, the police unions are very, very powerful. So they sway their political persuasion. They fund a lot of these politicians. And so these are the things that we have to watch. We have to be very aware. Go ahead, T.
You seen it, huh? Okay.
I see you. I see you.
This one, I've got to admit, I did not. There was pieces that I agree with. There was pieces that I don't. The immunity section and the wording, I think, and I hope next time around they change. And this bill, they kind of blanket peace officer, but I don't think that the regular layperson understands that a peace officer is more than just police. So while I think that this bill is fitting for police officers, a peace officer shouldn't fall under this. That really needs to be distinguished, because you're lumping in corrections, you're lumping in the forestry, you're lumping in housing authority, and taking away the immunity on that when they're sued, like that's detrimental to people's livelihoods. And we are talking about African-American individuals who work in those fields, who taking away that immunity and for them to be sued directly would just destroy their lives. So
Well, it should if they're in the wrong. It should destroy their lives if they're in the wrong. No, anybody. If a correctional officer. If a correctional officer, and this will happen, who Sandra Bland didn't die at the hands of a police officer.
You're correct.
Okay, so these are individuals that do something wrong. So if you're in the wrong, it's just like a doctor. All these other people, they have a great job. They do a great job. If you're doing your job and you're doing it correctly, there isn't as much of a concern. Now, you do open up a door a little bit, but that's part of again, that's part of the yin with the yang. If your counterparts or your co-brothers and sisters are not doing right, they have now put you in the position because they're all part of that same code. The people that dealt with Sandra Bland was in cahoots with the officers that brought her in. So all of them are tied into a system to where you have a lot of individuals that are dying in custody. So it ties to correctional officers as well. A lot of those things aren't talked about because, again, they demonize every single person that is that has done something wrong or they have a criminal record. And I'm gonna give the example of Breonna Taylor. They are trying to demonize Breonna. The reason why they haven't even done anything, they was trying to get her boyfriend to say that she was in on some drug deal or something with him, and he wouldn't flip her. So now then they can create this narrative that, whoa, we went in there and shot a girl that was asleep because she was involved in some type of drug deal, which would give them the license to do so. So if the efforts of a correctional officer, and this boils down to, and this is where we need to tear down all this union stuff. This is going to go down to teachers and everything else. They shouldn't have these type of protections because these protections harm our children. These protections are the same protections that we try to that pedophiles and stuff try to seek for. These are the same protections that these people that want to do something wrong, they have a way to get away with.
I disagree with that, and only because when you look at and I'm going to take the corrections for a moment. We'll take that example. So when you look at how often those officers are actually, and again, we're not talking police, we're talking corrections, how their system is set up. There's 5 different tiers of processes and 5 different organizations that go through anytime something is brought up within California. I can only speak on California. So within California, there's 5 different divisions that look through things. I think if anything, the police maybe need to mirror the corrections and the way that they do their investigations. But taking away that immunity, I just think we really need to relook at that, because what you're doing is you're setting a society up to where an officer or whoever the peace officer may be is going to look and say, you know what, I don't even want to get into that because I could potentially be sued. And I have actually seen that. You talk medical. I have actually seen that with a medical person. We were at a restaurant and someone was choking, and they're like, don't say that I'm a nurse, because if I give that person CPR and something else goes wrong, I can be sued. And yes, that's correct. And so we're setting up ourselves for failure to be protected. I just think that needs to be relooked at.
Go ahead, Pat.
Well, I was just going to say, well, maybe they can take out insurance on themselves, just like doctors do. They insure their hands. If they do cause harm to someone, the doctor per se, unless it's just direct negligence. But if there's a lawsuit, the insurance normally pays for the doctor. And that's one caveat that can maybe be explored as a way to handle lawsuits and things of that nature, rather than taking someone's complete livelihood, unless they're just completely negligent and willfully participating in doing something that is just wrong. You know what I mean? Other than that, things can happen by accident as well. So insurance.
I do like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and that's where, however it's going to be presented, it's still them being able to be liable for the actions that they've done. So a lawsuit, again, they're still going to have to go through barriers, right? You still have a union, you still have a process that they still have so many different layers. The immunity don't kick in until they've gone through all the other steps. But what it will do is it'll open them up if they are convicted of it. Then they're able to be sued. So it's not like, oh, I can go and sue them just because. that it doesn't open up that door of it just, hey, I can just come out and just sue you. You have to still go through a process. You got to go get a lawyer, number one, which is going to cost money. How many just people around here can just go pay a lawyer to go and sue somebody? You don't have that money sitting around, and then a lawyer is not going to take it unless they think they can win. And of course, they're going up against the police department, so they know they're going to have lawyers on deck, things of that sort, ready for them to be able. So I think that concern of it being a liability issue, if they have insurance, I do like that idea of them having some type of insurance on themselves, so that they feel some type of security if they're doing their job correctly. But then it is weeding out those that have ill intent.
Right.
And they know what they're doing. And just like Patrick said, they're just negligent. You have great doctors. Some doctors do make mistakes, but then you have those that are taking advantage of the system, and they do very negligent work, unethical work. And so, but those people would have to be weeded out. And it's still, even with those individuals, hard to weed them out, because you have to have correct evidence and everything else that's aligned with it. Now, we do have a couple of things that has been said. Glenda said, yes, I agree. The police society needs to mirror corrections. Interesting. The Department of Corrections have suffered so many lawsuits that I don't know why I can't see that. Hold on. That if you as an officer does something wrong, it does not matter what the union says, you can be sued or terminated. Interesting. Interesting. It can be sued or terminated.
I agree. The police definitely would benefit from restructuring to that system. It would be helpful.
We know that. So I guess the corrections don't have as much. From what Glenda is saying, they're a lot more strict than the police departments. So they have more protections than the police department. So it seems as though they're trying to target more or less the police department. And so that I think that'll definitely put us in the right position, because people need to feel safe around police officers. We understand the origin of policing came from slave catching. So when you understand their origin, it's they cap up in our communities, they put these drugs in our communities, then they make it to where it's criminal. And so bills and stuff is passed, then you have 3 strikes rules, and you have the difference between powder cocaine and crack cocaine, and they created our communities this way, and then all of a sudden opioids, and all this other stuff come out, and all of a sudden that's a health issue. That ain't a criminal issue, that's a health issue, because it's targeting a particular community. So these are the tough conversations that I think when we talk about policing and how they operate, we set that up for them as a society, as a community. We're setting that up and saying that it's okay when we have people that need help. We have a huge 30-year, 40-year gap of the crack epidemic to now of babies, grandparents, and children that have been affected by that directly, and our government funded that to come into our neighborhoods to destroy it. So we're being hit at so many different angles that I'm so proud of the Black people that I interact with, those that are sane, those that have made it out, those that have continued to push forward, those that are fighting for our communities to be better. I am so ecstatic, because the more y'all read history, the more prouder I am to be an African American, to be amongst people that are trying to make a difference in our society and to make a difference in our community, because we've come such a long way, even with people oppressing us deliberately. and then not just a people, but a government that oppressed us deliberately. And I think it's definitely phenomenal. Go ahead, T.
No, I was just agreeing. Like, yeah, we have definitely overcome decades upon decades, centuries of oppression, and still continue to thrive. And I think that's rather intimidating.
You hit it on the head. You hit it on the head. And I think that's where I think even Louis Farrakhan even said it. They don't really like him as much. And he made a statement that white people are afraid that one day, if we ever get into power, that we would do to them what they did to us. But we're not built like that. You know, we're not that type of people. And so we want everybody to win. And that's kind of been part of our issue as a people, is that we haven't never focused on ourselves. We've always allowed others to change our narrative or come up with other issues and problems. When we're having a heart attack, somebody is worried about us helping them with their scraped knee. And it's like, we having a heart attack. Well, my knee is scraped. We need you to come and get some Band-Aid. But you over here falling out having a heart attack. But they still want you to come help their scraped knee. And so with that being said, I think with society being the way that it is, hopefully we can get more support from our community. And folks understanding that our folks do need a lot of help, and we need it, and it's long overdue. And you all were very insightful on what you all have been saying on today. And we're going to take this last comment from Ms. Glenda. She said, yes, Patrick, if you use excessive force to gain compliance and found guilty, by the prison officials, you can lose money, time, or be terminated. That's why it's so hard to see these killings in the streets. So, and I think that's why even Glenda, being a former officer, she said if they mirrored that, their policies, it seemed like it would clean up a lot of, and I'm very interested in seeing what the correction policies look like, Glenda. I think that'll be extremely interesting. But of course, the corrections don't have that type of police union. That strong police union is the major issue of them having the influencers that's going to deter anything that's going to cause their officers to be liable for anything. And I think what you're suggesting is phenomenal. It seems like it's what we need. Definitely. Oh, she said I was a certified use of force instructor. Go on, Glenn. Hey. Yes. You're on the team, Glenda. You're on the team. You've been inducted. You are on the team. So that's going to be important. I truly believe it, and I appreciate everybody coming on. We said we'll be here from 6:30 to 8:30. And TR, you have any last thoughts?
I just want to go back up here, make sure I get my answer correct. I think that question came from, was it Michael?
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to affirm what he was saying.
Okay.
I can't find his question though. But I believe
Michael's question.
Yes.
Oh, he said Kenneth Owens said we should. Yeah, I did say we were going to address that. Kenneth Owens says we should vote Republican. Does that matter?
I think it does. I think it matters. That's all I want to say. You got any insight on that, Pat?
You know, I'm an independent, so you know, It's a touchy subject. I don't want to tell anybody how to place their vote necessarily, but vote for those individuals who support your ideology. And I'll leave it there.
Well, I ain't gonna be as political.
I can go right ahead.
I'm gonna be very candid. This is Patrick's position. Ain't nobody. This ain't the organization. This is Patrick Jackson, the man, Patrick Jackson's position. We're so concerned about the presidential election. I'll be extremely honest with you all. I don't care. I don't care. And I'll tell you why I don't care. Because neither the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party has cared about Black people. Okay, I am extremely pro-Black. Those that know me, I am extremely pro-Black. Neither party has helped Black people.
Correct.
So all these things that we're talking about, again, we need a Black agenda. Who's going to support the Black agenda? Now, if you feel like Trump has been doing a great job, you like him, great. If you feel like, he's a bigot and we need to get him out of office because he says all these crazy things and he's a racist, then vote that way. Vote whatever way you wish. But whoever you vote for, what they doing for us is the question I got. Whichever one is in office, what are they gonna do for us? And without them coming with their plan, but them adopting the plan that we have, which is moving forward in California, the reparations, AB 3121. We have people that are right here in our state. Are you supporting AB 3121? Forget the meetings and the high fiving and dancing. Are you going to support policy? I need to know about the policy. We can drink and dance. You can come and sit down and we can have a good time. And then what? We just gonna say, oh, I took a picture with so and so. Oh, I took a picture with so and so, and they did what for who? Again, the bougie people, they gonna like all that type of stuff. I don't, care about none of that. I care about effective change for real people that are hurting. We got a real community that's hurting. So I think it's extremely important that we as a community understand that we, especially when we talk about right now, Black Lives Matter, in what way? Show me what policy you gonna put together to help Black lives. If it matters, especially with all this stuff, you got the NBA, all these folks putting all over that basketball court, got Black Lives Matter on the jerseys and all this type of stuff. These legislators, they taking pictures talking about they're gonna help the Black community, help Black businesses, and all this type of stuff. With what policy? That's all I want to know from the Republican and the Democrats. And I don't really care about the presidency. I'm talking about from senators to assembly people, to your city council, to your county supervisors, to your school board members. What are they doing for Black children? What are they doing for those individuals that are hurting us at the bottom? We're talking about our education. We're talking about Black babies being killed off by Planned Parenthood. We're talking about our kids that are Black students that are right above, special ed when it comes to education. We understand that if they don't have a certain educational background by the third grade, that they're geared towards prison. So all these things aren't being targeted. You got all this information, but you're not creating any policy to target the children. So anybody want to talk about politics, to me, I've come to the awakening position, and I know everybody ain't there yet, because it took y'all about 10 years, 10, 15 years to get where I'm at now. Y'all was afraid to post Black Lives Matter 5 years ago. So now y'all posting it like crazy now. So I'm proud of y'all. I'm proud of y'all. Y'all catching up. So if we're going to move forward as a people, we got to be concerned about policy. That's all I want to continue to push in people's mind. It don't matter what the candidate says. You can have, and I give people, I'm gonna say this, and we're gonna get on up out of here. I tell people all the time this one thing: you can have a person that can be straight up with you and be a bigot, and then you can have a person that can act like they're your friend and stab you in the back. Which one hurts worse? So they both gonna hurt. They both ain't did nothing for you. They both did you wrong. So we gotta think about what we gonna get out the deal when we dealing with these folks. It's politics, folks. It's politics. It's business. And you going in with a business deal. We sitting down. You want my vote? What you gonna do for us? Because these are the things that we want. And we can check off the list. We can be, political with it. Oh, we can do this. We can do this. We can't do that, but we can do this. Boom! Now we got a deal. Let's move forward. So we got to start just thinking in that mind frame.
I can respect
Pat,
that.
can I just
go ahead, Pat?
Yeah, I agree totally with what you said. And I think, there's a scripture. It says, my people perish from a lack of knowledge.
Come on, please.
And I think that we need to get into the know who's voting against policies that will be beneficial for us. And that link that I posted there, when you go to that link and the bill comes up, there's a little tab there that says vote. Click that. You'll see exactly how every one of your representatives voted for this bill. And that's when we need to also make our.
We're gonna do one better for them, Pat.
Go ahead.
Since we on here, I'm gonna click on the link, right? Mm-hmm. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna share this. We're gonna share this, and we're gonna show y'all real quick what Pat talking about. I'm gonna show y'all what Pat talking about real quick. I done clicked on the link. We're gonna share this real quick. Where we at? Here we go. We're gonna show y'all. All right, y'all see it?
There you go.
Now this is AB 3121, right?
That's right.
Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Pat talking about when we clicked on that link. You see that?
Yeah, go to the. Mm-hmm. And you see where there
you
you go.
On vote.
Right there. Uh-huh.
Bam.
Everybody.
Now you can stroll down and see who voted. You can see who voted.
Uh-huh.
There go your bill votes. Here you go.
Look at your nays.
I like how you can also see who voted no on that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I know. Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat.
I was just going to say, I know which one that's in our district who voted no. If you go down to the Senate, on the Senate one. So, looking at these names, see who represents you. And then there's also a site that you go to. You type in your address and your location. It tells you exactly who your representative is and how to contact them. That's how we got to make our voices heard as well. They can give us wonderful lip service all day long on TV, during the news and all that. But how are you voting? And this is where you can really get.
I think the one that was local was actually on the assembly.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, thank you. He was on the assembly. And there's his name right there. And you'll notice, but on the Senate side, the NVR, I believe, is for basically not voting. No, not voting. Didn't actually put in a vote.
Yeah, Grove didn't vote.
Grove didn't vote.
Yeah, and Fong, I say their name. Fong.
Yeah. There you go.
Fong said no.
He said no.
He didn't want it. He didn't want it for us.
Right.
So Vince Fong.
He's part of the 34th district.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So
when it comes to things like that, I respect what you say about local policy and knowing who is actually in your corner on this and who's not.
There you have it, folks. You better look these up. We're going to continue to have these type of conversations to ensure that you guys are educated, be in the know, so that we can begin to point out to politicians that say that they're for us, if they're really for us, or they're really behind the scenes against us. So we're not going to be expecting these type of conversations. Not going to be expecting these type of real talk, real concise, We don't have any favors towards anybody. We just for the movement of us as a people. So if you're on the side of the people, you got us. But don't come with all the talking and yiki yak.
Right. That's right.
Don't come with all that. We moving forward as a people. We got to be more educated. We got to be more on top of things together and point out those that are really in our corner. So we're about 15 minutes over time. So I appreciate everyone that tuned in. Make sure that you all stay locked in for some of our next town hall meetings. We will have another one coming up next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we will have another town hall meeting that will involve Ms. Tiara King being the moderator of that. And we will be talking about Ms. Kai Jackson's situation that happened with Greenfield School District, of a pro-Black, phenomenally Black shirt that she wore. And she was reprimanded and or teased about it. And now it's going into litigation. So we're going to have a huge conversation about it. We have a pretty good lineup that's going to be coming up. Tiara King will be the moderator for that. She's going to be doing an excellent job as our political analyst, and she's been doing a phenomenal work in the community of trying to create change for us as a people. And we will also have Ms. Mina Harris, which is the owner and and founder and CEO of Phenomenal. She's also the niece of Kamala Harris, that's running for vice president. We also have Aubrey Connor, which is the lawyer of ACLU. And we'll also have our first vice president of the Bakersfield chapter of the NAACP, our own brother from another mother, Ms. Kai Jackson's fiance. He is going to be doing a phenomenal work. Mr. Acadius, yes, Ashby, is going to be doing his thing during that conversation as well. And of course, Kai is going to be on it. So it's going to be a really, really good discussion of how we're going to move forward as a community. Hope you guys can tune in to that next Wednesday, 5 o'clock. It's going to be a little bit early. We're trying to get the people on the East Coast because Mina has a following on the East Coast as well. So it's going to start at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, next Wednesday at 5. So you guys tune in, make sure you sign up, get all the info. Any last words, Tiara and Pat?
I think you summed it up wonderfully.
All right. Appreciate both of you coming on. Definitely look forward to having more of this discussion. You all have a blessed night. Thank you.
All right.
Good night.